So anxiety is becoming huge these days. A lot of people are dealing with this. A lot of people are dealing with various different forms of anxiety. And it's almost like the defining feature or the crisis of the age that we live in, the silent crises, where most people are not speaking about this. It's almost, or it probably is a taboo subject in many cultures still. And many of us just generally feel quite shy talking about this topic. Now, I've been also researching this topic quite extensively over the past couple of weeks for one of the chapters of my book. So I wanted to share some ideas with you, which I thought were quite interesting, some things that may be quite useful for you. And I want to also preface this by saying that this is not medical advice. So anyone that is really dealing with this, I really encourage you to seek out medical help for whatever you're going through, if you feel you need that. Nevertheless, I think these points I'm going to share with you based on personal experience and based on the research I've done, I think are quite universal, and they will be quite useful for, anyone that's watching this video. Obviously, there's many reasons people go through anxiety, experience anxiety, and some would be reasons which are not related to what I'm speaking about today. But I think what I'm addressing here is that general thing that's going on where a lot of people are dealing with anxiety, and this whole phenomenon is becoming more and more rampant as time goes by. And I believe there are some fundamental reasons behind this, and I'm going to touch upon a couple of those right now. The very first thing, which is the obvious point, something I've mentioned on my channel many times before, is all we have to do is look back 100, 200 years. We have to look back to the period of the Enlightenment and what took place then, which was, again, not going into detail here, but essentially a shift in the psychology, in the mindset, in the way people saw the world. We saw a shift from what Professor Leo Damrosch refers to as the vertical plane, meaning people focusing on the divine, God being at the center of their life, religion playing a seminal role in one's existence, to focusing on the horizontal plane, as he mentions, which is the material, this world. This was the fundamental shift that took place. People went from worshiping God, focusing on the hereafter, and even their life in this world was predicated by and dependent upon their belief system, their belief in God and the hereafter, and so on and so forth. And this gave them a very different perspective on reality. It was a different worldview. And this is not only speaking from an Islamic perspective, just generally from a Western perspective. Life was connected to God. Obviously, there were distortions in the conception of God and who God was, etc. But that's a different topic. But people shifted from this. The Enlightenment caused this shift where people turned away from God essentially and religion and started to focus on the material. Now, when one gets rid of God, that space needs to be occupied by something else. There has to be a surrogate, as the author of, and I don't remember the author's name, but the book 7 Shades of Atheism, I think it is, as he sort of speaks about it. There has to be a replacement. There has to be something that takes that space now when you turn away from God and deny God. And essentially, man and woman, human beings, were told to take up that place. So you, or people, became God. You played the role of God. You determined your existence and what you were going to do, what your future was going to be like, what right and wrong was. You determined your own destiny, essentially, and what meaning was for you, and all of these things. Just stop here for a second. This in and of itself, when man is or woman is put in that position of having to play God, is extremely exhausting. By our very nature, we recognize on at least some level that we are weak human beings. We have limitations. We can't do everything. We're not able to, create certain things it's not our job. So when you start playing God and you start to take on that responsibility of creating your own destiny, your own meaning, your own morals, your own systems, and so on and so forth, this is very, very taxing and naturally creates a lot of anxiety within people. Furthermore, as Byung-Chul Han in his book Burnout Society highlights that, and this was one of his, for me at least, one of his standout points, that we shifted from an obedience type or based society towards a achievement-based society. This whole idea of you have to achieve this and that and the other, and you have to do X, Y, and Z, and you can, and you're able, and all of this new age type of, psychology that's been pushed out, which is, you can do everything, you can achieve everything, and you should be doing X, Y, and Z. And this thing that's pushed throughout society it causes a lot of pressure. When you can't do something and when you can't achieve something, you feel inadequate, you feel useless compared to the other person. A lot of unnecessary competition is being created. Obviously, if you go down the rabbit hole, you realize that there's only a handful of people that benefit from this from a economic or material perspective. But essentially for us, the individuals, people in society, this whole idea is pushed. You need to achieve this, you need to become this, you need to do this. And when you can't, because all of us fall short, all of us have certain skills and excel in certain areas and don't in other areas. When you can't do that, it becomes extremely depressing. It causes a lot of anxiety and tension. So that's two factors now. When you combine those two together, one, you having to take up the role of God in some sense in your life, and then secondly, you being told that life is all about go, go, go and achieving things and making something of yourself and becoming this and becoming that. It causes a lot of agitation, tension, anxiety within the person. On top of this, there's a very interesting book called Beyond Anxiety. I don't, again, remember the author's name. I'm terrible with names, but I really recommend this book. And in this book, the author, she takes the perspective of neuroscience in particular, and she highlights that this whole enlightenment movement, and along with this also what changed was our epistemology, or the epistemology that we favored and focused on, which was empiricism and rationalism. This really activates the left hemisphere, the left side of the brain, which focuses on thinking and calculating and amassing. It deals with these types of things, and that's also the part of the brain which is responsible for anxiety loops and people falling into anxiety loops, which I thought was very interesting, because that's the way we focus. We are predominantly left hemisphere driven today. And the right hemisphere, which is more focused on creativity and I guess even spirituality and other creative stuff, we don't use and we don't focus on. So from her perspective, that also leads to this anxious age that we're experiencing right now and the increase in levels of anxiety across the populace. So when you combine these three things, it's not surprising that people are becoming more and more anxious. It's not surprising at all. And this also affects Muslims. Let's be honest. We live in this very society. We live in the West and even in the East, which takes on these modes of function, if you like. They are also experiencing these things, or they will start to experience these things. So let me just summarize that for us again. Number one, in a very simple way. Number one, turning away from God. Turning away from God. That's even if you don't reject God, but just turning away from God in the sense that God is not just being secular from this perspective. Even if you believe in God, but God or Allah does not play a significant role in your public life and the way you engage in the world and the way you see the world, that in itself is enough. That in itself is enough to put you in that position where you have to start almost, I'm not saying people are deliberately doing this, but you have to fill that role. What is my meaning? I have to look for my purpose. What is right and wrong? How are people understanding right and wrong? Where do I go? What do I become? How do I define myself? All of these things creates this pressure on the person, because these things aren't supposed to be things we come up with. Throughout history, human beings have never relied upon themselves to figure these things out or create these things or understand these things. They've relied upon God. But since in modernity people have turned away from God, and that means either completely rejecting God or just becoming extremely secular with your belief, which most Muslims are suffering from as well today, that creates that issue. And then secondly, on top of that, when you create this society which is focused on achievement and multitasking, and you should do X, Y, and Z, and if you don't become this or don't achieve this, you're just not good enough, that creates a lot of depression and anxiety within people too, especially younger people. And then on top of this, if we really think about the way we function, the way our education systems are designed to make us left hemisphere dominant from a neuroscience perspective, that further compounds the problem and adds to the issue as well. And on top of that, how can I forget? Add to the mix social media, right? Where you're completely disconnected from the real world around you, and real people. And we're social creatures and real social interactions. And we're living most of our lives on social media, engaging with posts and digital stuff and not real human beings or not real things around us. That's definitely further compounding and exacerbating the problem as it stands. So here's 4 things which are very evidently causing issues within people, within society. Now again, I'm not saying all anxiety is due to these things, but these things are definitely exacerbating the anxiety people are experiencing. And obviously there are different psychologies, there are different types of people. And some people are more sensitive and deep thinking, so they're more prone to anxiety. So for them, being in such an environment or in such a system, makes them more susceptible, if you like, to being anxious and more often. But nevertheless, these are things, if we understand what's going on, and 2, okay, let's end the video, I guess, on more of a positive or a useful note. How can we, understanding all of this, help ourselves so we don't become victims to anxiety unnecessarily? And by the way, anxiety is a very natural state for human beings. Don't see it as something that's just bad and terrible and no, you should never experience it. No, fear, anxiety, all emotions are something every single human being experiences at some point in their life. The point is that the society and the world that we live in today is creating an environment where anxiety is rampant. We're experiencing it far more intensely and far more often than we need to be or we should be. And we can really help ourselves and minimize that. So how do we do that? I guess the simple answer is we reverse all of these things to the best of our ability. So firstly, turning away from God, well, turn towards God. Turn towards Allah. And in the book that I'm writing, it doesn't have a title right now or a finalized title. We really go into this and we discuss, okay, what does it really mean to believe in Allah and to turn to Allah? And all of these other concepts like tawakkul and taqwa and all of these things. How does that help? I mean, tawakkul in and of itself, just think about the concept or the idea of trust in Allah, right? And the way our scholars have explained this, reliance upon Allah. Imagine, just do a little thought experiment. How would that help someone who's anxious? It's very powerful when you think about it. Well, one, you're telling the person they're not alone in this vast universe. They're not just a cosmic accident in this vast universe having to create their own world and their own destiny and their own meaning when there is no ultimate meaning. No, you're telling them they were created. Allah exists and He's created you for a reason. And He's told us that He is the one in total control, not us. And He's able to do all things and change all situations, not us. And therefore, if we rely upon Him, as we should rely upon Him, what's that going to do for us? And what does it mean to rely upon Allah? It means to not be dependent on anyone else, hope anything or expect anything from anyone else, or fear anyone else for that matter. It means not to fear your sustenance tomorrow. And anxiety, a lot of anxiety is to do with the fear of the unknown or what's to come or the future. So having tawakkul or trust in Allah is trusting that Allah will provide for you. He will take care of you. And you don't need to worry. And really believing this. It also means not fearing or being worried about a difficult situation. Because we rely upon Allah. This life is a test. We'll go through hardships. But knowing that Allah is there and He's taking care of us and He can change this situation and He's allowing for this situation to take place, this difficult time, because there's benefit in this for us. Not only conceptualizing this, but internalizing this, which is very difficult, by the way, is going to really shift your, not only you from your heart, your spiritual heart, but your psychology as well. It's going to really create a change in you, bring a sense of peace and stability and tranquility to your heart. Right? So just concepts like this yes, knowing we need to know Allah, we know Allah is one, He created everything, but what is it? What is tawheed? Internalizing tawheed, trusting in Allah, working on that. It takes effort, relying upon Allah, putting your trust in Allah, remembering Allah throughout your day-to-day life. Salah, which is your connection your remembrance of Allah 5 times a day, engaging in that in a meaningful way. Just in a conscious way where you're turning to the one that created you and sustains and provides for you, and you're turning to him in worship of him because that's what he created you to do. Doing that consciously with intent is very powerful, right? So that's one thing we need to focus on, is turning towards Allah, but doing it in a way which is real for us, not just conceptual or theoretical or information based. The second thing we can do is shift ourselves, change gears a bit. Why believe in this concept of this achievement-based society? And by the way, I'm not saying having goals and wanting to attain certain things, that's bad. No, we all should have goals. We're all goal-driven. We need to be setting goals and working towards those. But don't do it in the manic way society tells you to do it today. Work on this and that and the other, and multitask and go crazy and try to become a jack of all trades and master none. And how many times do we have days where we're trying to do 101 things, but at the end of the day, we haven't really achieved much at all, and we don't, and that in itself causes anxiety and agitation. So relax, realize we're limited beings. We can only focus on a few things at a time. Sometimes give yourself days where you set yourself one specific goal and you work on that thing. Maybe you're going to sit down and you're going to read for an hour or 2 hours or half an hour even. And you're going to just focus on that and not worry about anything else, worry about scrolling or going on social media or doing X, Y, and Z, right? So try to limit your multitasking. Try to limit the number of goals you give yourself at any given time, and also try to limit yourself or even stop yourself from looking at others in the world that we live in today, especially on social media, who create this perception of the perfect life where they're this go-getter and doing everything and achieving everything, whereas in most cases their lives are not really like that in reality. Stop believing these delusions and just remind yourself of, to focus on the basic stuff. Set yourself simple goals, achieve simple things. You don't have to be, this is just why should life be like that? Why should you be running after 101 different things and trying to become X, Y, and Z? No, do the basic things and do them well. Set yourself specific goals, something you're aspiring towards, and work towards it gradually with patience. That's another issue. On one end, they're telling you, go do X, Y, and Z and become this and improve yourself in this way and change yourself in this way and do that and do this. And at the same time, it's almost another message that comes through society is this instant gratification thing where things should be instant. Things should be now. You should achieve them now. You shouldn't have to wait. And patience is not mentioned anywhere. Just being patient with the process of change or development or growth or even achieving a goal. Take your time. Take one thing at a time. Do a little bit every day. Right, but do it well, do it with ihsan, or to the best of your ability. So focus on doing that as well. The third thing, left hemisphere, right hemisphere. Okay, so we know we're left hemisphere driven, logical, rational, calculating things, amassing things, all of this type. That's what we focus on. Reasoning, information gathering, all of this type of stuff. Take some time, as the author in Beyond Anxiety book illustrates. Do creative things, have creative hobbies. For most people today, their hobby is social media. Their hobby is Facebook, Twitter, these days is TikTok and Instagram and all of this type of stuff. Yeah, have real hobbies. Paint, draw, write, many other things you could do. Build things, whatever interests you. But do something creative where you give your mind a break, from a specific way of functioning. Activate your right hemisphere as well. It's going to benefit you. It's going to relax you. It's going to calm you down. It's going to put you in that parasympathetic nervous system where, that rest and digest, where your nervous system's chilling out and it's not just on edge and anxious all the time. So focus on that as well. And the third thing, which is the whole social media angle, cut it down, essentially. Spend less time on social media. You may not think it's affecting you. You may think it's just entertainment, but trust me, it creates a lot of agitation, anxiety, and frustration. It really messes your dopamine system up as well in ways you can't even imagine. So limit your social media content consumption. Give yourself a goal. Okay, I'm only going to spend half an hour a day on social media. Watch a documentary instead. Watch a program instead. Do something else if you're going to be on your phone or your laptop. But instead, choose to spend some time with family, with friends, with kids, or being out there. Go for walks. We're in summer now in the UK. The weather's beautiful. Go outside. walk in the grass, see the trees. All of this research that shows this has a direct impact on your psyche and the way you feel. Spend time in nature. We're not supposed to sit still within four walls staring at a screen all the time. That's not what we were created to do. Obviously that may be a part of our lives, which is we work and we have to work, but we have a lot of other time where we could be engaging in other activities, where we're outside, relaxing, just clearing our minds, maybe walk and do dhikr, whatever the case is. Just take a break from social media and try doing these things. And if you implement these things, I guarantee you'll feel, even if you don't suffer from anxiety, as in like full-blown anxiety where you feel it and you're aware of it, you'll notice you'll see yourself calming down, maybe becoming less agitated and annoyed and a bit more, even more productive. Your mind will clear as well. So focus on these things, inshallah. Make a lot of dua as well. Ask Allah to help you. And just take it easy, because especially if you're in an anxiety loop and your nervous system is just sensitized and you're just on edge, it's very hard to think clearly in those times as well, because your body's in fight or flight. Your mind is just there's imminent danger, which doesn't really exist, but it's there. Take a break. Don't worry too much. Take a deep breath, relax, get out, and realize, these are states, natural states. They will pass. Give them time. Have patience. Make dua to Allah. Focus on productive things. Have an occupation. Do something, instead of focusing on the anxiety itself. And get help. Get professional help if you really can't, figure it out right now, if you're in a real low, inshallah. So may Allah make this easy, brothers and sisters. Hopefully this was beneficial. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you guys next time. Assalamu alaikum.